Back to Brian's Beat.
You always seem to work things out. Can't you see you're two of a kind? Looking for every time. Report to the truth. I will always stick together.
Hour 2 of Brian's Beat. Welcome. Beautiful day on tap.
Side by side.
No, I wish I wasn't so busy. I think today would be a grand day to get over to Round Hill. I don't know if you were listening to ABC News, but I was actually going out to get a little cup of water. And, criminals, I don't know if they are a step ahead of the game or if law enforcement is a step ahead of them. But I was listening to ABC News, and the newsreader was talking about how criminals are now going to real estate sites and using Google Maps and stuff like that to scout houses to try to figure out what house they want to try to break into. And I thought, wow, that's really being sophisticated. I don't know how many of the bad boys, bad girls have tried something like this, but I'm willing to believe that it happens. Go figure. 508-996-0500. Monthly Fee RX brings us the Brian's Beat quote of the day. If you're spending less than $20 a month for prescription drugs, great. If not, then our Monthly Fee RX service might be a good option for you. Check for yourself at monthlyfeerx.com. And our quote today comes from Earl Nightingale. I don't know if you've ever read some of the books or listened to some of the audios that Earl put out back in the 1960s and 70s. Some of the best stuff ever released as far as I'm concerned. Today's quote, it is our attitude toward life which determines life's attitude toward us. It is our attitude toward life which determines life's attitude toward us. Wow. I mean, some of this stuff can be really heavy, but that's it, Earl Nightingale. We closed out our number one talking about a couple of things. The idea that the Republicans, Massachusetts Republicans, I'm going to say they hijacked it from me. Oh, I'm sure, look, if I could think of it, other people can think of this. The idea of putting a ballot question on the November 2026 election ballot. Basically, giving a fine line as to who should be able to collect from the shelter system, the emergency shelter law that we have here in the Commonwealth. I say let's put that whole thing up for a vote for the people. Do you think that we need to keep it? Now, the folks might vote to keep it in, but at least we know where the people stand as opposed to the legislature. The legislature did this back in the 1980s, not we the people. Oh, I'm sure the legislators had some stakeholders, but isn't that the case all the time? Stakeholders equal lobbyists who go up to Bacon Hill and they say, hey, we really need a program like this. We'll even write the bill out for you. And then boom, it's on the books. Been on the books for 40 years. But now that we have folks coming in from outside of the country up to the Commonwealth, and yes, we have a sitting governor who, before she became governor, invited folks to come to Massachusetts. Bottom line is always the bottom line. Do we need this shelter law? Or do we say, wait a minute, that's why we have churches. How many abandoned churches do we have? maybe folks would go back to church if they thought there was a valid reason for them to do so. Maybe they could help the homeless. Maybe they can help start businesses and stuff like that. But because we've got big government saying, well, look, you can use SCORE and we'll help you come up with a business plan. You ever try using those folks? As if, they're retired. I thought they were retired executives. They're retired people that know how to point. All right, this is a cash flow statement, and that's all you can do. And that's all they'll do. So I'm of the opinion that we bring it up for a total vote. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Or do you want to do like the Republicans are suggesting here and do it piecemeal? Decide who should be able to stay in the shelter system as opposed to voting on whether or not we should keep the system. And then that led to me coming up with the statement, maybe we should vote on whether Massachusetts should be a sanctuary state. Now, I think there are a lot of people that are against the idea of Massachusetts being a sanctuary state, but they're against a vote like this because it's their feeling that a sanctuary statehood would win. But at least we know where the people stand. Wouldn't you want to know? Don't you want to know? I know I want to know. 508-996-0500 to get onto the program today. Hello.
Hello?
Hello.
All right, I'm on. I think ballot questions in general are a good idea. Maybe they don't have to be binding, just to, let the politicians know what the people think. Your idea of giving favoritism to real residents has some merit for discussion. I think there could be a simultaneous ballot question on whether the people think that they should allow tent cities. Do we really want the migrants to be roaming around and subject to other problems? Shouldn't they be at least stabilized or being given an opportunity to stabilize in tent cities where there could be social services and medical control over diseses and stuff that could spread? I think
that would probably be something that you could do locally. I think a tent city idea would be something that if you're talking New Bedford, the voters of New Bedford would have to approve. If you're talking Mattapoisett, voters of Mattapoisett.
Yeah, but there might need to be a state ballot question on just showing how much approval there is in general for it.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but I'm going to give you a scenario. You know the town of Weston, right?
Yes, I've heard of it.
And Dover and, the richer communities here in the Commonwealth. They might vote for it, but they would never vote for it to be in their backyard.
Well, why not? Why not stabilize these people that could get into trouble roaming around? I think the main objection to tent cities is it shows that the system is not working. And it's an embarrassment to this country. Europe would, for example, be seeing news clips of many tent cities around the United States, not just a few. If there are, millions of migrants in this country, I don't think it's a good idea to have them roaming around being desperate. Some may turn to crime, for example, and the dysfunction of children, of them growing up in that situation. We have to put our embarrassment away behind us because there's a need to shelter these people. It may be you're right that Americans deserve the Class A shelters, but I don't see how it would be humane to put everybody roaming around on the street with cops telling them keep moving, etc. That's not very humanitarian.
Okay. Let's take it from where you're going. We get a ballot question. Do you think that you want to go statewide, or do you want to just keep it to the city?
Would you say that again, please?
Do you want to keep it statewide, or do you want to go to the city right now with my question?
Well, I think there needs to be a general statewide view of what's going on, and that may convince local towns and cities that it's a moral necessity and a civic necessity to give people some sort of a shelter, a tent city, rather than nothing at all.
Then you said statewide, so do you seriously? I get that, but do you think that the voting population of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts would actually vote in favor of the tent cities?
I don't know, but I like you're bringing up ideas to address that. I don't think it should be stonewalled.
Okay, fair enough. No, I just want your opinion. That's why I asked.
Yeah, and we want your opinion, and I applaud you for having an opinion, whereas so many people are ducking the issue.
Gotcha, man. Thank you. I appreciate the call.
Bye.
Bye now. 508-996-0500. Thank you for your patience. Hello.
Hi, good morning, Brian.
Good morning, Brian.
The reason why many of the churches are closing and they can't handle the situation is because they're built by man, made out of wood and stone. You got to go to the church that God is building, like Stephen did in Acts 6 and 7. That church is open, but you got to go to him and see the windows of heaven open up for you and the glory of God, and see Christ at the right hand of God. That's what you got to do. That's what faith is. It comes from the gift of the Holy Spirit, where you do not fear what man can do to you, but you fear and tremble what your Father in heaven can do to you. It's spoken in Matthew chapter 10. That's what it means to be a disciple of Christ. Because the servant is not above the master. You got to be as the master, which is Christ, who's the Word of God, and the Word is God.
And the Word is, thank you very much for that. I appreciate the call. There may be a God. I'm not going to sit down and try to argue the pros and cons of it. If you believe, and that's what you believe, all the power to you. I've got no problem with that.
Mr. Clean, Mr. Clean, Mr. Clean.
Time to do a little house cleaning from the WBSM app chat. The Democrats claim Donald Trump is a threat to democracy, all the while the Biden-Harris administration recently put Tulsi Gabbard on a political critic of Harris on the terror watch list. Who's next? RFK Jr.? Are we turning into a banana republic? Let's see. There's another one here, too. I don't think they should ever be binding ballot questions because that would be a form of direct democracy. Is that a problem? Direct democracy? I've got no problem with that. How about you? 508-996-0500 to get onto the program today. In case you're just now tuning in, what we were discussing is whether or not to have a ballot question about the whole emergency shelter system. I have been a big proponent of, should we keep the shelter law that we have right now? Of course, I haven't heard anybody really, I hear people complaining, but I don't hear them say, okay, well, we got to get rid of the law. They have no problem complaining about Bacon Hill lawmakers sitting on their hands, not doing anything about it. But when it comes to asking, well, should we do a ballot question? Crickets. Well, the Massachusetts Republicans are now considering a ballot question for November 2026. But their ballot question, at least the way that it's sounding right now, in fact, it doesn't sound like they want to challenge whether or not that there should be this right to shelter law. They think that the people of the Commonwealth will support it. So you never know unless you try. But I guess polls have shown, the old proverbial poll has shown that folks would support it. I say, well, let's find out if they do or if they don't. And if folks do support it, now there's a reason, sadly enough, to say that our tax dollars should go in this direction. We're talking about $700 million to $1 billion in the current fiscal year for the shelter program. And you wonder why we're broke. You wonder why we're broke because more and more of your dollars are taken out for taxes. And that means you can't go to one of the restaurants down the street. And if you can't patronize the restaurant down the street, then the folks at the restaurant don't get paid. The restaurant doesn't stay open because we don't want to go back to the dark ages. That's what a friend of mine recently said about the taxing system. It's bad, but we don't want to go back to the dark ages. Where are we going right now with everything that's going on? That's my opinion. And then I also stated, why don't we also do a ballot question about whether we want Massachusetts to become a sanctuary state? Because if folks vote for us to be a sanctuary state, then they're giving their blessing for folks who come here illegally from, you name your country, to live here in the Commonwealth. I think I would throw a little extra onto that and say, well, if you want, then you pay. You pay. Because I think there are a lot of people that are in the camp that I'm in that says, well, if they're coming here and they're going to work, they're going to be peaceful and law-abiding as citizens, fine. But we shouldn't have to use our tax dollars to pay for them. So, I mean, there are three categories. They're here illegally, send them back. They're here, but let's not pay for them. And then they're here and let's pay for them. But we never, the we being the yous and me's, not Bacon Hill lawmakers, not governors, the yous and me's, we never get to make a decision on this kind of stuff. And darn it, I think that it should be a decision of the voters. So a ballot initiative, I think that would be the proper way to go. That to me is the best first start. Big money. RFK Jr., as he suspended his campaign for the presidency yesterday I think he was in Arizona. We have 69 days before Halloween, 69 days before Halloween. If the economy is humming along, doing very well, as the Biden-Harris administration has been telling us, then why, when you go into a Starbucks or go through the drive-thru, why are they doing their pumpkin spice coffee right now? 69 days before Halloween. I mean, if this were the beginning, maybe even the last day of September, I would say, okay, 69 days out. We're still in August, and you're doing your Halloween promo right now. All right, let's hear from you. 508-996-0500. Thank you. Hello.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
My omelet stuck to my pan, and I'm very upset about it. But anyways, now my father and I have had this discussion over the previous years about charity and who it ultimately benefits. Is it a personal achievement? Does it inflate one's ego, or make someone feel better if they donate to a charity? Or does it ultimately help the intended target of the charity? You know what I mean? Like,
can you explain that a little better, please?
Well, you can send pallets of bottled water to a people somewhere, and that's great. They drink that water. Does that ultimately help them, or does that just maintain them? Versus rather you teach them how to build a well so they don't have to rely on you constantly donating water to maintain their survival.
That sounds like the fish or the fishing pole type of question. Correct. I think both are helpful. I guess where I got lost, where I got lost is you were talking about the ego part, and I didn't quite see how that connected.
Well, do people donate to charity to make themselves feel more whole? Or do they really, which is more important, them actually helping someone else or some other people, or is it making themselves feel better, closer to God, so on and so forth?
That's a great question. I don't know the part about God, if that has anything, or their religion has anything, if they have one, has anything to do with it. But I think my gut tells me that people give because they see a problem, and that's their way to try to resolve, or at least throw their 2 cents worth into it.
Well, all right, relating it to the illegal immigration problem, we want to feel better about ourselves by saying, yes, come here. We are a good people. I am a good person. Come here, and I'll make sure that they give you everything you need. That's what we see in these sanctuary states, and I don't think that's the right way to go about the charity.
That's fine. Then let's vote for it. Then that's what I'm trying to get at. I mean, we can sit here and debate that part of it, but I think the best thing to do is get a ballot question so folks can say with their check mark, or however the ballot is, circle it or color it in, how we feel, because until we do that, I mean, it's your way of looking at it compared to Jane up the street.
Right. We can't exactly trust our politicians to do 100% of what we voted them in for, unfortunately, but that's just the way it is with politics. Could be 3/4 of it is decent, but we kind of sacrifice for the last quarter.
Or maybe they're tossed.
Negative stuff.
Maybe they're look, I'm going to just throw out a name, State Senator Montigny. He's got a territory that goes from Dartmouth to Fairhaven. Now, his people, I'm going to draw a line down the middle. Half of his people, New Bedford to Dartmouth, feel one way. I should probably say all the way over. No, that's far enough. And then half his people from the other part of New Bedford to Fairhaven might feel another way. So he's torn.
Right.
And that's an altruistic way of looking at it. So sometimes our lawmakers just can't make a decision.
Right. You just got to be realistic about it. And some decisions are painful or uncomfortable, but they have to be made. And I think that this illegal immigration thing has to be handled in possibly the uncomfortable way, and say, listen, we can't keep doing this. You have to go through the processes to be here, or you should not be here.
I get that, and I'm gonna stop there, because What I'm trying to do is, should we vote on it instead of going through the same old debate about you shouldn't be here? Because according to the polls, whether you believe them or not, the majority of people seem to favor this state being a sanctuary state and or the right to shelter law.
Right.
But I would like to find out, I would like the binding part about it. Let's vote on it and find out how people really feel.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. You got the rich people that can maybe afford that charity, but then you got the people that are barely affording that roof over their head that shouldn't have to shoulder somebody else's responsibility.
Gotcha. Thank you. I do appreciate the call. You too, 508-996-0500. Hello.
Hi, Bri.
Hi, Bri.
He brings up a good point. There's definitely a difference between individual charity and state charity because in the case of sanctuary states, I don't believe that it's about saving the people as much as maintaining the policy that they're trying to maintain, which is to keep the borders open. So
what's a state charity?
What I mean is that the state has its own reason for sanctuary state status because it's not every state in the country is sanctuary, but it's mostly liberal states, and they're trying to maintain a policy that the border is open, and they're trying to support that through this sanctuary state.
Maybe what I'm trying to get at is, do we vote on something like that? Because my guess is, if the polls are right, I'm not trying to say that they always are, but if the polls are right, then the people here in the Commonwealth are okay. Maybe it's a slim 52-48, 53-47, but people seem to favor us being a sanctuary state. Conversely, if we vote against it, then hey, we shouldn't be giving all this money. We shouldn't be doing this right to shelter.
What does a sanctuary state mean, state to state? Because there's a big difference. Because first thing is they're subverting law. That's the reason why they're doing it. So there is a law, and they're subverting the law by saying we're ignoring the law because we're now a sanctuary state. So I guess that you really need to put it in a position along those lines, because that to me is what I'm seeing when I see sanctuary state. When a felon is in prison or is in court in Boston, and the judge lets them out the back door to not connect with ICE, which is a federal jurisdiction, because they've done something against federal law, and we're allowing them out the back door to escape, and then that person kills somebody. Is this sanctuary state or subverting law really what we're supposed to be doing here? Right?
I'm going to come back as I was with the other caller. We should make this, we should be voting on whether or not we the people want Massachusetts to be a sanctuary state.
I think that's probably reasonable, but I think that it has to be, people have to understand what it is. I think that it gets wrapped around a lot of good feeling and goodwill and all this, and that sounds great, but that's not what it's about.
Well, so what you're saying, if pardon me for putting the words in your mouth, but what you're saying is we're going to have to go out and do, if those that are against sanctuary statehood, we're going to have to go out and mount a good PR campaign, because we know that the other side is going to be able to use tax dollars and whatnot to fight what we're trying to do.
It all depends on what side you're on. There's no question that if Trump gets in, then he's going to start cutting federal funding from states, because if they're sanctuary states, because if there's going to be a deportation, Eisenhower too, then people that want protection are going to flood into Massachusetts. So think about that. What could happen is that New York is a sanctuary state, and so is Massachusetts, but if the states around in New England aren't, and Massachusetts is, then illegals are going to flood into Massachusetts, so they'll get deported. So the problem here could get exacerbated by like 10 times. So, but I don't think the average person gets enough information to understand that. So if you're trying to vote, you're voting on goodwill. You're not voting on what could happen. So
gotcha.
I don't know.
Yeah. I think you made a valid point. Real quick
on RFK Jr. I think he spelled, and you kind of played a clip. He spelled out what the Democratic Party is about. I mean, here's a guy that lived in the center of the Democratic Party his whole life, his whole family, and the way he outlined it yesterday was a pretty stark reminder as to what's going on, and that they've been, I don't want to say hijacked, they've just moved so far left that they've left a lot of people behind.
Did you hear him?
Yes.
Oh,
I heard his,
unbelievable.
I heard his speech before Trump, and that was even better.
All right.
Yeah.
No, I mean,
about,
I'm listening, and I said, yeah, I know some of this, but I mean, he dug deep into what was going on.
The one before he was meeting with Trump was awesome because he talked about the depth of corruption in the United States, and he said the two biggest corruptions are the industrial complex that's killing Americans through food and through drugs, and the second was the Democratic Party. He said that's why
of which he's been a member for so many years.
Yeah, he said that's why I want to play the spoiler at this point. I never planned to, but they can't. He said basically they can't be in power. If they are, we're going to lose the country. So,
all right, man.
Very interesting.
Thanks.
See you later.
Have a great one. 508-996-0500 to get onto the program today. Hello.
Brian, always good to have you on in the morning.
Thank you.
You talked about Starbucks having their early Halloween products available.
Pumpkin spice.
I know. I'm not sure if that's an indicator of the economy or not, though, but it could be with Starbucks. However, on a slightly different note, I was in Lowe's probably 6 weeks ago. They had Halloween decorations set up in there. And
Lowe's, the wood and stuff like that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Lowe's, yeah. And not only were they way too early, but they were very tacky looking as well. But that's kind of irrelevant. But they had them set up, and that was like in probably early July. And it's like, and if you notice, they're starting to cram like holidays almost together with their decorations. Between Halloween, Thanksgiving, and Christmas, it's this nonstop flow.
I noticed with the Halloween lights, they're kind of you can't tell if they're Halloween lights and then they become Christmas lights, or the Christmas lights that can also be turned into Halloween lights.
Yeah, it's like right, absolutely, and it's just like I think it's sad that big companies like that have to even do that, and. But, and even, car dealerships have always done it. They'd have President's Day sales that would go on for 2 or 3 weeks. And
I know.
and if you asked any of these salesmen, they wouldn't know who the president was at the present time, And it's horrible.
But it's true. It's true. I've never seen. You see the commercials on TV, and I'm thinking, but wait a minute, President's Day is over. Why are you still,
Yeah. And they do it, and it's horrible. But anyways, it's good to have you on. Keep up the good work, and looking forward to hearing you some more.
All right, my man. Thanks for the call. I do appreciate it. Do we have time for one more before the break? Yeah, we're going to do one more before the break because I said so. Hello.
Oh, thanks, Brian.
You're welcome.
Man, I tell you, hearing all these people that are opposed to sanctuary cities, it's like they're
sanctuary state. Sanctuary state.
Well, either way, it's as if they're looking for an excuse to be evil.
I don't think so. I think, look, I can speak for Brian. I'm not going to try to speak for the others, although I have heard many people call not only my show, but other shows on this station and around the Commonwealth. It's our tax dollars. And there are people that are our neighbors who can't afford to pay their taxes because their tax dollars are being used for folks that they have no idea who they are, where the hell they came from. I think that I think that makes some sense that they would like to spend their own money, or at least if they can't spend their own money, maybe the roads get taken care of. Maybe the military veteran who finds him or herself out in the street gets taken care of. Is that bad?
So if somebody fell in a river and they were floating by and you had the chance to toss them a rope, and you decided, it's going to cost me too many calories to swing my arm to toss a rope, That's how creepy this is.
No, it isn't. No, I mean that's exaggerating. I think people would go out of their way if they saw somebody who was drowning to try to save that person, or at least do what they could do, whether it could be from the shore yelling "help, help, help," or actually going into the water to get that person. What we're talking about here are folks, and it's not just folks coming in from outside the country. We've got folks coming into Massachusetts. From another state.
Syria? You remember ISIS in Syria? 25 million people were trying to escape that murderer, and America went out of its way to not let them in. 25 million people. And same thing in El Salvador, Guatemala, Nicaragua, all of these countries where they had death squads murdering people. And Ronald Reagan and George Bush and Trump went out of their way to make sure they couldn't escape tyranny, murder, evil kings, and sanctuary city. I mean, that's straight out of Jesus. Come welcome the stranger.
You know what?
America was made stronger.
I think there are people like Brian who feel that, well, you got here, but we don't want to foot the bill for you. If you can go out and get yourself a job, you are law abiding. That's one thing. But you've got other people that are saying you're here illegally, you need to go back. And then you have other folks that are saying, well, good, you're here, and we don't mind giving the benefits. So those are the three choices. But I think for me, it's about the tax dollars.
You never heard of penny wise and pound foolish? That America is.
Well, then you pay for it. You pay for it then.
America loses its reputation as being land of the free and the home of the brave.
We're not that anymore anyway. That reputation is long gone.
Land of the skinflints and home of the cowards. That's what.
No, I don't know about cowards. I don't. No. What? We're cowards. We're cowards because we don't want to keep on paying money that we don't have. We have a legislature that allows this to happen and doesn't listen to the people, and we're cowards?
Yep.
Really?
Absolutely, especially because you've heard of this Project 2025. All of the Heritage Foundation that put
Project 2025 is something that is being floated nationally. We've got a right to shelter law here in this state that is, but you're all over the place.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you are.
The very same people who are getting tax breaks, the Heritage Foundation is getting tax breaks, and they are the evil corporations that are creating the death squads. They're the evil corporations that are making the sweatshops down there that these people are trying to escape from. Texas right now made a law that says that you cannot get a drink
I'm going to do the same thing that I did to the folks that were on the other side. What I'm trying to get at is, should we do a ballot question about it? I'm not trying to get into this long-winded debate about the death squad. I know they're down there. All right. What I'm trying to do is, we are here in Massachusetts. I know you're not in Massachusetts, but we're here in Massachusetts. And we've got lawmakers who are sitting on their thumbs, not doing anything about the situation. And so we, the people, the Republican Party, I'm not a Republican, but the Republican Party is coming up with a ballot initiative to try their best to piecemeal it and rectify the problem. I'm just trying to take a big swoop here and say, should we become a sanctuary state or should we not? That should be voted on. I think that's a decision that we, the 7 million people here of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, should make a decision on. Should we have this right to shelter law? I think the 7 million people that are here should have a decision on whether our tax dollars are used in that direction. That is what I'm calling for. All right? Never mind the Jesus and all that stuff. Jesus isn't going to come down and rectify the problem. That problem has to be solved by the voters at the ballot box. Thank you much for your call. I really do appreciate it. Callers like that get me dripping under my armpits. I hear what he's saying, and you know, there are lots of people like him. Now, he calls from San Francisco, and I think they have some form of sanctuary state going on in San Francisco. And quite frankly, California is a different breed in that they are right there on the Mexican border, and there are plenty of people that float back and forth. It's hard to really try to distinguish who is from there and who is from here. And, you know, I think it's discriminatory when we start going down that road if we're sitting here in the Commonwealth. But where I come from with all of this and why I want to see votes taken, when it comes to folks that are here illegally, and I'm going to spread this out, not just folks coming in from outside the country, but folks that are, you know, they meander over from Ohio, or they're coming up from South Carolina or Alabama. I think before we start getting to the point of automatic shelter, automatic medical, automatic language arts, automatic food, automatic education, there should be some type of grace period or waiting period. Now, if you're coming from out of state, you're here in the United States, look, somebody might have been transferred with their job. Yeah, we can play with that. We can play with that. But now if you're coming illegally from outside the country, all right, you're here. You are law abiding. Okay, you want to go out and get a job, and I'm okay with you. There are plenty of jobs out there available, according to our governments. So if you go out and get a job and somebody wants to hire you, you should be able to afford your food. You should be able to afford your shelter. I mean, medical benefits are high for everybody, but why should somebody else have to pay for your medical benefits? I know I'm a pain in the ass with the stuff, but you know, I'm sick of it. That's what it comes down to. I am sick of it. Hello. Yes, you're there. We hear you in the background. Do you want to say a syllable or two? Going once.
Hello?
Yes, hello.
Hello?
You're on.
Right. I think your plan will not work because in the state of Massachusetts, we're going to be, I don't know if it's passed already, but like in Boston, they're allowing the immigrants as well as people who don't belong here to be able to vote in the local elections. Now, if that's a state election, they may be able to vote in that because it's not a federal. Federal, they cannot vote, but in the state, they may be able to vote if the state votes for it. So that would be a number of people voting who have a personal interest in it. And with the large numbers that are coming or going to come, it would make the election invalid.
Oh, it would make it invalid, but what you're saying is it would tip the scale.
That's absolutely.
So here, I think your point. I think your point is
they're going to vote for it.
I think your point is valid. So maybe there needs to be yet another ballot question, which would say, should we allow folks that are here illegally to be allowed to vote?
Oh, I agree with that. Okay, well, I thank you very much for not cutting me off, but that's the facts. Thank you again.
Now, why would I cut you off for that?
Well, I've been listening to your station for over 40 years, and I've seen some people get cut off rather quickly. So I
yours truly?
Not you personally, but through the years.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you
I have to leave right now because I'm working for a living. Thank you very much.
You're working for a living. Okay, well, I guess we all do that. I appreciate it. And, you know, it's a good point. He's working for a living, and look who else he's working for. Look who else he's working for. I know there's that saying, is that fair? Well, nothing's really fair. But he brings up a good point. If illegals somehow can vote here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, well, here's the thing. Let's say they are allowed to vote. Let's just say they are allowed to vote. That should give power to the people, especially the political parties. Now, you know the Democrats are going to come out and say, you want to follow us because we'll make sure you have everything in your pocket and you won't have to pay too much. But if you get Republicans and libertarians out there, we'll say, well, look, you work for a living, you pay a modicum of taxes. We don't deal with the freeloader system. One of the things that I've tried to impress upon my party is that we have to get out there because folks are here and they're not going to get kicked out, at least not anytime soon. So we should teach them how to be whatever the smart American person should be, and that would be a hardworking individual. But you know what? I have a hard enough time convincing my party to get down and do it. I don't see the Republicans doing it, and we know what the Democrats are doing. We know what the Democrats are doing. Mr. Pittman is walking through the door. He'll be carrying you after ABC News. I'm Brian. We will do it again next Saturday. Until then, I hope you have an excellent week. Enjoy the sunshine today. I'm off to get ready to take